We are Tvach. We're learning on Daf. Think Samachay Amar Aleph about um, I think on that about 5 lines down in the wide lines. Um, so middle of saying the psukim that describe the long Mishnah, which describe the avodah of the Oila Saif. And then we had a brisa that went through the psukim that described the avodah. So middle of that. So up to the words v'nimtza damai. The pasuk says, "Bekriva akoyin el hamizbeach," brings it to the Mizbeach, Molokas Roishoi, cuts off its head, his finger, v'hiktir hamizbecha, v'nimtza dome al kir hamizbeach. He does mitzui of the Oila Saif on the Mizbeach. Just to remind you, not that I don't think it's necessary over here, not necessarily coming up over here, but the Oila Saif was on the top part of the Mizbeach, and the Oila, you go through both of the simanim, you do it, you mavdal it all together, and it only has mitzvah. There's no hazah. The chatas oiv, which is on the bottom, this first a hazah and then a mitzvah. So this talk of a nimtza damai. Let's talk about that mitzvah, the actual, which is the sinas dam on the mizbeach. Right, the mitzvah of the chatas is more daima to the shirayim. That after you do the hazah, then you do a mitzvah of the on the side. So v'nimtza damai kulay, all of the dam. The pasuk continues al kir hamizbeach, on the wall of mizbeach, v'lo al kir hakevesh, v'lo al kir hahechel, not on any of these other walls. It means on the wall of the mizbeach. Ve'eza zekira elyon, and which part of the wall of the mizbeach is it talking about? The upper wall. Maybe one might have thought we're talking about an oila sa'if. Oila sa'if, the chayr should be on the bottom part. The dinu, and it would say a kavachayim ma behema shechatasa lamayla. I lost a lamata if by a carbon, an oila, nothing is done lamayla except for a chatas, and we're talking about here about an oila. So the behema of an oila is done lamata. Oif shechatasa lamata, an oif that even though the behema chatas is done lamayla, the oif is done lamata. In it din she'oilase lamata, an oif. Oila should certainly be lamata if a chatas is lamata. Talmud Leimer. So what do we know that that's not the case? Because the Torah said, "Umalak es roishay v'hiktir hamizbeicha v'nimtza damai." So umalak v'hiktir v'nimtza damai. The order is incorrect. Hiktir means to burn the behema. You burn the oif. How is it possible? The malika, okay, that's the first thing. How could you then go and burn the oif on top of the mizbeach fully and then go do mitzvah? It's impossible. It's already burnt up. So why is it put in that order? Obviously, it's not the order. Ma'ak Torah b'oisha mizbeach, af mitzvah b'oisha mizbeach. It's put in that order to tell you to put malika, the haktara, next to the mitzvah. Okay, tzad. How does he make sure to do it on the top part of the mizbeach? He would go up the ramp, and he'd turn onto the ramp, meaning the mini ramp that went to the saiviv. He would come to the southeastern wall. So that means this is the ramp on the, I guess, the right side of the kevesh. And so he'd go up with that to that corner. He would do malika to separate its head by its back of its neck, and he'd be mavdil. We're talking about the oila, right? So it does that you do your mavdil. And he does mitzui on the mizbeach, on the wall of the mizbeach, on the upper portion. Zok the Tanakama. Im also lamata miraglav afilu amak shera. The chut hasikra was not directly underneath the saiviv. It was an amma below. That means the thing that cut off between the top and the bottom. The chut hasikra was an amma beneath his feet where he was walking. So if he would be Mematzah midama on that foot, on that not foot, on that amma, it would be okay. That's the Tanakhama. Rechamim Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov Aimim Kolatzma in an asel b'roish hamizbech. He says no, it has to be near the top of the mizbech. It has to be near the actual top where the keren is. He can't do it by his feet. My beinayu. What's the reason for this machlokes? Abaye v'Rav Dami Shavayu oisam arachal gabi soiviv ikabeinayu. They both agree that the Torah puts together the Motzei and the Haktorah, telling you that the Motzei has to be right adjoining to where the Haktorah is. So the second Mandamer says, Elazar ben Yaakov says, it has to be right underneath the marach, where the marach is, that the surface, the roof of the mizbeach, because that's where you do the burning, that's where you do the Haktorah. The Tanakhama says, no, it's not necessary. That's not the only place where you could do the Haktorah. You could actually burn the oilas oif, on the Seiviv. So therefore, the Amma underneath that is also considered to be right underneath where you're burning it. You still have Motzei opposite Haktorah. So that's the question. The question really boils down to, everyone agrees that Motzei has to be near where the Haktorah is. The question is, where is Haktorah limited only to the top of the Mizbeach or to that second surface, that Seiviv that goes around in the middle? So the Mishnah continued. Baloi leguf. He went back to the guf after right. What did he do? No, he did the malika. He did the Motzei. Then I think he took the what did he do? He took the head. Right, he went away with the head. Where's the Mishnah? It's on Amud Beis over there. He first burns the head, he puts it in malach, and he burns it, then he goes back to where the guf is, and at that point he takes out the moirasa, the noifa, and he throws that on the deshen. What is the mairasa? Mairasa is the zefek. It's the crop. It's one of the digestive stops when the bird eats something. Yachol yaktir besakim v'yitlan. That's the way Rashi learns it is. Maybe that means when he's coming to take out this crop, maybe he makes a hole. He makes a slit with a knife in the bird, and he takes it out through that slit. But it doesn't mean he doesn't doesn't cut out a round hole in the bird to take out everything covering the zefek or the moira, but rather he just takes it out without disturbing the skin and the feathers. So Zakta Gemara, Tamalayma b'neitzasa. He takes it together with the feathers, meaning with the skin and the feathers that's on top of it. He takes the feathers with it. He says, in addition to taking everything else, he also takes the kurkavana, which Rashi says, davar mos, meaning the kurkavana, according to him, is a different taich in noitza. Noitza doesn't mean, according to him, feathers. He's saying noitza means this unappetizing, the unappetizing part of it, meaning the part of a different part of the digestive system. In addition to taking out the crop, he also takes out the kurkavana. Noitza is a word he teaches as disgusting, and it means, that's what Rashi says, moasu. So it's a reference to something other than feathers. It's a different part of the digestive system. The Be'er Bishmol Tana b'noitzasa b'noitza shalah. He says you do it with the noitza kaider b'sakin k'minaruba. He cuts a round hole in the skin together with the feathers, and he takes it out. So this is essentially the same as the Tanakam. So the Mishnah continued. We're on Samachei Amud Beis at the top. Shisa v'loy hivdel. If he split, he's shaisa. He has to separate the bird into two sides. This is not talking about the Havdalah from the head from the goof, but rather the two sides, the two wings. So he rips it apart without being mabdal. Tana Rabban V'shasa ain't shisa ela b'yad. That refers to by hand, not with a knife. V'chein u'ema v'sheu k'shesa hagdi. Shimshon Agibar said he's tore apart a lion the way you rip apart a gedi, meaning with his bare hands. The Mishnah continued and said, Loi hissa es hamirah. If he didn't take out the Moirah, and then the Mishnah continues, if he that's going to be kosher. But if he did the Havdalas, if he did the wrong Havdalah, by a Oila you're supposed to be Mavdal the head from the guf entirely. By a Chatas, you're not supposed to be. It says Lo Yavdal. So he says if you did it, the Mishnah said if you did the wrong one, by the Oila you were not Mavdal, or by a Chatas you were Mavdal, it's possible. So Akamar Masis no like a Elazar of Shimon. It's not like a Elazar of Shimon. Tanya. I'm a Elazar of Shimon. Shamati Shemavdilam b'chatas oif. I heard that if you do Havdalah by a chatas oif, you're not supposed to do Havdalah, but if you do so, it's kosher. It doesn't passel it. My beinayu. What's the explanation for this machlokes from between our Mishnah and Elazar of Shimon? Our chizda mitzvah chatas oif ma'akav ike beinayu. The question is whether you have to do the mitzvah. If you remember, we said by a chatas, which is done lamata, you first do hazah, and then you do mitzvah on the side. You first you spritz the dam, then you press it to get more dam out. And the question is that a requirement for a chatas? Tanakama Sava, the Tanakama who says if you do by a Eilasayf, if you don't do Avdallah, and by a Chatas, if you don't do Avdallah, it's going to be puzzle. So Tanakama Sava Mitzi Chatas Oif Ma'akav. So if you do a Chatas and you could skip the he holds that you must do the mitzvah. So if you did the full-fledged chatas oif, is not supposed to be fully cut. If you did the havdalah, and then you continue and you do the mitzvah, so what you've done in the end, you've done all the things that are needed for an oila oif. So when you do, if you do a full-fledged wrong procedure, avodas hadam. For this oif, this is really a chatas, and you did everything that was necessary for an oila, then it's going to be possible. Since mitzidam, he must do the mitzay hadam, because otherwise he wouldn't be yaitza. So therefore, he's always going to have the mitzay. So he's doing a ma'isa oila b'chatas oif. Rabbi Elazar Shimon Sava, it's not necessarily the case that even though he was mavdil by a chatas, if he skips the mitzvah, because he's allowed to skip it, it's not ma'akev. If he skips the mitzvah, so he never finished doing the whole avodah of an island. So therefore, it won't passel. That which he cut extra is just cutting. He didn't do a replacement, an incorrect avodah. All he did was he cut his chatas more than he was supposed to, but he didn't do the rest of the ayla because if he skips the mitzvah, then he's.
But even if he does actually mitzvah, it doesn't make a difference if it's not ma'akev.
I'm sorry.
Even if he actually does do the mitzvah,
he should know. We will tell him don't do the mitzvah, and then that way avoid parceling your carbon. That will be his way of correcting it. Even though he was mavdal, there's a way for him to save it still. Just don't do the mitzvah. If he will do the mitzvah, l'chayre would parcel it.
It would. Oh,
I think so. Let's see the Rashi. Elazar Shimon Savalei Makav Hilkach. Imratzel lahavdal yavdal. Below yematzal achavdala. He shouldn't be. He won't be mematz avdala. Yavad le ma'isa oila. B'mishum deshinim avdala. Kimila ma'isa atzim oila motzi lemeima b'hach chitach basa b'almu. It sounds like he has to stop and not do the mitzvah. Okay, that's the first shot. Rava says there's a different, it's dependent on a different point. Shia b'simin sheni ba'ilus ha'oif ma'akev ikebeinai. As we're going to see on the bottom of the Yamud, when we say that there's a difference between the Havdalah of a Chatas and a Oila, it's more involved than that. It means by an Oila, when a person does the Havdalah, he does the Malika, the Kohen does the Malika, and he cuts through the two Simanim, it means he does it all in one shot. He takes his thumb, he cuts through the skin, and then he cuts through the two Simanim. By a Chatas, there's an extra requirement that you don't have by an Oila, that he cuts through one siman, and the other siman he doesn't have to cut, or at least not cut right away. But what he does first, before he cuts the second siman, is he cuts through Roiv of the Basar. That's the way the Torah, that's the way it's dictated. That's a proper way to do the Malika of a Chatas. So the question is, what's the status of if he skips that extra requirement of a Chatas by doing the Oila Havdalah? Right? When he does the Oila Havdalah, he just cuts through the two Simanim without waiting to cut through Roiv of the Basar in between the two Simanim. So that's a machlokes Rav Shimon and our Mishnah. Shia b'simin sheni ba'ilus ha'oif ma'akev ikebeinai. The question is, if you wait before you do the simin sheni of the Oila Saif, and you do in middle, you do this extra cutting of the Roiv Basar that is needed for by a Chatas. So that's the question is that ma'akev? Tanakama stava shia b'simin sheni ba'ilus ha'oif loy ma'akev. The Tanakama says it's not ma'akev. So therefore, you can skip the Shia, right? You don't have to do I'm sorry, no. You will do the Shia because that's the way you do a Chatas. He's doing a Chatas, right? He did a Chatas, but he did the mice of an Oila. So the question is he really copying the Oila? If a Oila has to have that Shia, I mean, if Oila can't have that,
an Oila gets both
Oila doesn't have
cut,
Shia.
But I think the Oila gets two Simanim cut and the Chatas just gets one.
Right. But the Chatas, which has one, has another element that you do after you do one. And that's to cut Roiv with the Basar.
You cut one Siman and then you have to cut the Roiv Basar.
Right. Now I'm avoiding the fact of whether this Roiv Basar is La'akav or not, because that's going to be the next Shita. But now we're assuming that is necessary. You need to cut that Roiv Basar. Right. And he's making a Chata, so he's got to cut the Roiv Basar. But then he continues and he cuts the other Siman. So the question is, did that waiting make it that it's no longer the same as his Oila, as a Oila Havdalah, as a Oila?
Because it's similar to
because if it is similar to an Oila Havdalah, then it's possible.
Right? We're talking about he's cutting. He's shechting an Oila Saif or a Chatas.
He's doing a Chatas Saif, but he was mavdil like an Oila. He went through both simanim incorrectly. Now, as long as, like we said in the first teretz, as long as he's doing is just cutting extra, but he hasn't fully done the avodah of a Oila, it's going to be kosher. Now, in order for this to be kosher al chatas, he's got to do the she'iyah. He's got to stop and add this extra, which he's doing a chatas, so he has to do that. But the question is, does that disqualify it as an oila? If it disqualifies it as an oila, then it will remain kosher as a chatas because he didn't really do an oila avodah. So that's the question. It's not ma'akev. So therefore, it really is a good oila, and therefore it's not good as a chatas. He's done the ma'isa oila by a chatas. Reb Shimon Sava ma'akev. He holds that shia is ma'akev. Given the shaya, since he waited, it's going to be a real oila, and therefore will disqualify his chatas. It's a little confusing because the more kosher it is an oila, the more it passes as a chatas. That means if he did a valid avodas oila, that passes his chatas. So that is Rava's sheet. Then we have come to the third sheet. Abaya, I'm a roiv basam akav ikebeinayu. He says the question is in that the first step of that second teretz. We're saying that he has to, in order for the chatas to be valid, he has to cut roiv of the basar. He has to wait. He has to do shia to cut roiv of the basar before he cuts the second siman. He says that's not necessarily the case that it has to do it. So if you hold that it's not required, so he could skip it, and he does the Havdalah in one shot, and therefore it will be an avodas. The Ayla it will be an avodas Ayla because he didn't have to wait to do the basar. The other man says no, he has to stop for the basar, and if they both hold that Shia is gonna passel, and therefore it won't be avodas Ayla and it will be mutter. Okay, so that's the third shot. We've looked at the Rav Zera of Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. This machlokes between Abai and Rav is the same as another two Amoraim, Rav Zera of Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. Chada Mashiach b'simin sheni ba'ilus ha'oifim akav ikebeinayu. One says that like the pshat that I think I forgot who it was. Which one was Rav and which was Abaya? The first one, one says like Rava. And the other one says like Abaya.
No, put the Tanakh Kamar Elazar Shimon. Isn't that the machlokes?
No, these Amoraim are being chaylik on how to understand the machlokes of Elazar, Shimon, and the Rabban. We had Abaya's pshat, we had Rava's pshat. One is saying like Abaya, one is saying like Rav.
Okay.
And they wouldn't be saying like the Tanoim. So the Gemara, Machlal de'mi'inan roiv basa betchila. For the fact that we're arguing, right, about whether the roiv basar is ma'akev or not, vaista is l'chayra, you for sure need roiv basar, right? With this, we were just introduced to this requirement that when you do the malika of a chatas, you only go through one siman. Vaista is l'chatchila, you have to stop and take off roiv basar. The Gemara in that is the case. So the Gemara. Well, Tanya, and I'll bring you right. Ketzad Malkin Chatas Oif. How do you do the Malik of the Chatas Oif? Choitech Shedra or Mafrekas. You cut through the spine or the spinal column, whatever is the equivalent of a spine for a bird. It doesn't really have a spine. And Mafrekas is the bones. The Loi Roiv Basar, without cutting through Roiv of the Basar. Ad Shemagia Leveshet, until you get to the first siman. Lakana or the other, the veshet and the kana are like one's the esophagus and one's the throat or the windpipe, whatever it is. So those are the two simonim of the bird. Higia leveshet lakana chaytich siman echad ayrubai. He cuts through one simon or roiv of the simon, which is good enough by a bird. Roiv basar imay, and he does roiv of the basar together with that veshet. So he has to stop and do the roiv basar. And by Ayla, he has to do, rather than doing the basar, he has to do the two simonim, arrive of the simonim, but no mention of the basar. So it means he doesn't stop in middle to do the basar. Amru Kamid of Yirmiyah, Amal Shemiya Lahu, Had Amar of Shmim ben Aliyaka, Mishum Reb Elazar ben Padas, Reb Elazar ben Shamua, Oima Hayir Reb Elazar ben Shimon. Shemati b'chatas ha'oif shemavdilan. That Rebbe Elazar Shimon said, like we said on the top of the Yamid, that he holds shemachati b'shat ha'oif shemavdilan, that you are mavdil, meaning that you can be avid. My lo yavdil. What does it mean when it says our Mishnah said lo yavdil? It's like the Gemara ain't sarach lahavdil. It means, even though it says lo yavdil, it means lo ain't sarach lahavdil. But if you are mavdil, it's still going to be kosher. Amalei Ravacha Breder Raval Ravashi Alamiyata Gabi Bar. So you're saying when the Torah says lo yavdil, Torah said lo yavdil, we're saying all it means is that he doesn't have to be mavdil. But if he doesn't, if he does so, it's still kosher. What about what it says by Gabi Bar? The siv lo yichasenu means someone who made a bar. Kiyiftach ish bar or yichra ish bar. Lo yichasenu, he doesn't cover it. Benafal shama shar chamar, and then a shar chamar falls into it. Hachanami the ein tzarich lichzais. The Torah said lo yichasenu. Now it's very strange. I don't even understand this shtickle. Over there, it's describing what happened. Over here, the Torah is giving a prescription of what you should do. But anyway, that's the Gemara's question. So you say lo yichasenu hachanami the ein tzarich lichzais. It's like Gemara. Hachi Ashtra, it's no comparison. Hasan Kindach said, Balabar Yishalem, Eluyahu, Allahu the Rami Luxuya. That, since he says he has to pay it, so we know obviously he has to cover it. I mean, the real point is that the Lo Yichasenu over there doesn't mean, I mean, it's not because it said Lo Yichasenu that he has to cover it. He has to cover it because he's, it's I don't know what it is. You're not allowed to damage another yid. The Torah says you can't damage a yid. So this is not where it's saying that you shouldn't, that you can't, you must cover it. Anyway, al hacha michti sivik michti sivik kriva chalak kasam and chat saif lo saif lo yavdel lamali. The Torah says first the kriva. So this is glad the oila saif. It says he has to bring the oisai, the krivai it, the krivi as if it said oisai, it, specifically it. That goes halakasa ben chatas life oila. So it's saying that this din of the chatas life is not the same as the oila face. So then lo yavdil lomali. Once we already said that they're different, why do you have to say lo yavdil? Since we said that it's different, I will know that even though it says the yamavdil by the oila life, by the chatas life, it said it's not the same as the oila life. Shmami no. So why does it have to say lo yavdil? Lomali shmami no ain't tzarich lahavdil. Since the Torah didn't have to say lo yavdil, because I could have deduced it from the fact that the Torah was memayit and was machalik between the oila saif and the chatas saif. So from the fact that the Torah also said lo yavdil, that tells you that it's not b'diavad. It's just l'chatchil. Very interesting limud, because why would I have said that the miyad is talking about legabe havdalah? I wouldn't know there is such a chilik between havdalah and that. So he said in the Mishnah, mitzah dam haguf. So legabe the oila sa'if, we said if he does have, there were two types of mitzvahs he did. He did first mitzvah from the guf, and he also did mitzvah from the rosh. So we said in the Mishnah that if he did the oila, if he did the mitzvah of the guf without doing the rosh, it's kosher. If he did the mitzvah of the rosh without the guf, it's possible. Tanraban, oila av b'shem mitzvah dam guf v'lo mitzvah dam rosh yachol mitzvah dam rosh v'lo mitzvah dam guf. Maybe it would be the same thing. Maybe all he has to do is one of the two. So even if we just did the mitzvah on the dam rosh, that would be enough. Tam leimer who? The Torah says who. It means b'shisa oisa b'chnava v'lo yavdo hikter oisa akanam mizbecha ala eitz v'asher ala eish oilahu. Says Oilahu. My Talmud. How does the fact that it says Oilahu tell you that that doing the mitzvah of the rosh is not going to be yaitz? Amravina mistaver the roiv dom in beguf shchichi. Now, since the Torah says a limitation, so that tells you one of the two is not ma'akev. So it's more likely the guf where roiv the dam is, that's the one that's ma'akev and not the rosh, which is not the roiv of the dam. Hadran aloch kochi koshim. Next parak. Okay, trying to decide which way to do this. If we should do it, there's a Mishnah and then a second. We'll try to do it the hard way, I guess. So the Mishnah. Chata sa'if she'asa lamata. Again, the chata sa'if is done lamata. That's the proper way. Kamaisa chatas, and he did the correct avodas of a chatas. And we're going to define later what that is. What are we referring to? And he did l'shem chatas. He did it as shalishma, as a chatas. Kshera, it's kosher. That's not surprising. He did everything right. Obviously, it's a kosher chatas. This is just setting up for the obvious foolish kayin who messes things up in the next section. If he does kemaisa chatas l'shem oila, if he does the chatas, he brings his chatas oif, but he's doing it l'shem oila, kemaisa oila l'shem chatas. Or if he does it, he does it the proper procedure for an oila, even though he did l'shem chatas, he got the lishma right, or he does kamasa oila l'shema. If he got everything wrong, he did both the avoida incorrectly and he did it l'shem oila, psula. Because even if all he did was shalai lishma, it's a chatas, and a chatas, as we know, passes it in gansen. And if he did the procedure wrong, it's also going to pass. Also, lamaila kamase kulan, if in addition he did everything, any one of those options that we mentioned before, even the first option where he did, except for the also lamata part, he did kamaisa chatas and l'shem chatas. If he does it lamaila, it's the wrong place and it's going to pass it. Now we go through the same question, the same issue by Oila. Oila sa'if she'asul lamaila kamasa oila l'shem oila k'shera. Did everything right? It's a kosher oila. Kamasa oila l'shem chatos k'shera. If he does a oila l'shem chatos, the only thing that's wrong is he didn't do a lishma, then it's kosher b'vachli also l'baila. It's not going to be oila l'baila l'shem chayv, like we said in the first Mishnah. Only a chatos is puzzle. A oila is kosher l'oila l'baila l'shem chayv. Kamase chatas l'shem oila. If he does, instead of doing the proper ma'isa oila, he does ma'isa chatas, even though he does it l'shem oila. Or kamaisa chatas l'shem chatas, or if he does it entirely l'shem, both l'shem chatas and kamaisa chatas is psula. That's obviously going to be possible because of the ma'isa chatas, not the l'shem chatas. L'shem chatas, we said, is only kosher v'le'ol b'al l'shem chayv. Also lamata kamaisa kulam psula, and if he does his oila, which is supposed to be lamaila, he does it lamata, it's going to be possible. So now the Gemara is going to. Now, I'm not really sure how to address this because really, for the second part of this Gemara, you really have to see the next Mishnah. So maybe we'll skip to that after we see the first part of the Gemara. But first, the Gemara asks the question: when we're talking about that he's shana, but he did the ma'isa chatas when he was doing the oila, he's doing the ma'isa oila when he's doing the chatas, right? We started with the chatas oif where he did kamaisa oila, and then the second part of the Mishnah was where he did, amongst one of the cases was where he did by oila oif he did kamaisa chatas. So the first thing we said the chatas oif that he did kamasa oila, the shana b'mayim. What way did he do? What did he do that was made it a ma'isa oila? It doesn't mean that he did everything kamaisa oila. We're talking about one specific thing. Ilay the shani b'malika. If you'll say that he did the malika like that of a oila, meaning that he was mavdil the whole thing, name it the like Rabbi Elazar of Shimon, right? We just had this machlekes before, right? In the earlier Gemara Rabbi Elazar of Shimon says that even though it says lo yavdil, but he said mavdilin bechatas oif, because it's only chituch basa be'alma, whatever the different ways of explaining the machlekes. But in the end, he says you can't cut through it, and it's still going to be a kosher chatas. The Amar Shamati Shemavdilim Mechatas Oif. So the Gemara V'lo Yekimned like Rebbe Elazar of Shimon. What's the big deal? Why can't we just say Einachanami? It's not like Rebbe Elazar of Shimon. So Gemara Loi, it doesn't know. Don't be so quick to accept it's not like Rebbe Elazar of Shimon. There's different ways of understanding our Mishnah that would not cause it to be a machlekes. The Shani Bahazah. We're not talking about where he did the malika of a chatas of an oila, but he did the hazah of an oila, meaning an oila you don't do hazah, you do mitzvah on the top of the mizbech. So he just did the mitzvah without the hazah that you would do for a chatas, where you do hazah followed by mitzvah. Hachanami mistavra, and Gemara says it's muchach like that. Midiktani seifa. Also, l'mayla kamaisa kulon psula, right? We were continuing with the case of the chata sa'if, which is supposed to be on bottom, and we said if he did it l'mayla kamase kulon, even if he did whatever he did as far as whether he did the ma'isa chatas or the ma'isa oilo, he did l'shma chatas or l'shem oilo, it's possible. That means afilu kamaisa chatas l'shem chatas. That means even if he did it Lamaila by a chatas, even if he did everything like a Maisa chatas and L'Shem chatas, he did everything right. So the Shani b'mai, what was it that he did Lamaila? Right? We're saying that he did it Lamaila, but he did Kamaisa chatas and L'Shem chatas. So what was it that he did Lamaila? Ilema the Shani b'malika. If you'll say that he did the Malika Lamaila, Hamamar Malika b'chol makam mizbeach sher. That right, we had Shmuel that said before that you could do the Malika, even if you do the Malika in the wrong place, it's still kosher. I'm sorry, no, that's not Shmuel. That's Bechlal, we said before, that Malika b'chol makam mizbeach sher. There's no Lamaila that's going to passel by the Malika. Elalav the Shani b'hazah. It must be that he did the hazah in the wrong place, because that's the thing that could passel it. If we're saying that he was mishana legabe the lamayla lamata legabe the hazah, so the first when we also said that he was mishana in the maisa chatas and he did kamaisa oila, that also means he did the hazah kamaisa oila. But the mar midiira hakadisa v'hakadisa. What do you mean? When the maila it's talking about how just like when just because the second part of the Mishnah or the end of the first part of the Mishnah, let's talk about if he does Kamaisa Kulan, Asala Maila Kamase Kulan, is talking about Hazah, does not necessarily mean that in the beginning when we say Asa Kamaise Oila, that's also talking about Hazah. That could be talking about Malika, so you don't have a raya to your suggestion to make it that this Mishnah could be like Rabbi Elazar Bar Shimon. So the Mishnah says Oila Saif. So really, 6:38. Do we have like another 10, 15 minutes? I don't know how feasible it is. I might be a little, I guess we'll do it. We'll do this tomorrow. We'll start tomorrow, I guess, from the Mishnah, because it's a long Mishnah, and it's very hard to understand the Gemara without seeing the Mishnah. And the Mishnah itself is hard to understand, so we'll do that first thing tomorrow, and then we'll go back and do this Gemara.
What time tomorrow?